My name is Michael Harper, and I'm one of the co-authors with Robin Glasgow, as well as Shawn Nason, who wrote the book Kiss Your Dragons. And this is the final stop on at least this part of our virtual book tour. We've had a great time exploring different aspects of the book, and today's session is going to focus on going deeper. It's not just a quick tale about kissing a dragon. It's not just an easy thing for you to adopt in your life. We want to go a little bit deeper and explore the nether regions of this whole theme, if we can call it that. And we also have Christopher Brennan with us, who is one of our Mofi team members who has agreed to take us down into this deeper journey. And so just a few housekeeping things to get us started. We are recording. We're going to put this on the virtual book tour website so people can come in and watch it if they weren't able to come today. So we do invite everyone to be on camera, but if you are, just know that you are being recorded. And if you would prefer to have your camera off, that is fine as well. We do hope that you'll be super active in the chat. We've got a lot of chat people in our world, and we'd love to continue the conversation because we want to be this to be as interactive as possible. So if you post questions along the way, we will do our best to get to them, and we'll definitely have a question and answer time here at the end. We want to look at the heart sets and mindsets that we have from this this whole book experience that we've gone through together. And if you're not familiar with the book, we have a set of heart sets and mindsets that can help all kinds of people navigate all kinds of amazing things. And I'm going to share my screen and just throw up the sets of my heart sets and mindsets that we have, so that everybody can get a sense for them. And then we'll be digging into some of them likely as we go, because that's just kind of what we do. So if you can see my screen, it's the stuff on the left are our mindsets, and the stuff on the right are our heart sets. So we have our mindsets of fall in love with the problem that combines with the heart set of Kiss Your Dragons. And radical relationships, a mindset pairs with embrace your swarm. Bias towards action pairs with unleash your inner fire. Show don't tell connects with be the dragon. Do no harm, break no rules, and proceed until apprehended connects with soar with your dragon. And this slide is actually part of the resource kit for teams that you can buy from our website as well. But we'll be referring to some of it as we go, and we'll put it back up there if we talk about anything specific that we need to bring up. Our first question to really get us going today, and we'll unpack more of this theme as we go, but the whole idea is that when we're talking about kissing your dragons, we're talking about embracing the challenges that are in all of our lives and leaning into them so that we can become the people that the world needs us to be. There are ups and downs, and it's really a transformation story. So I'm going to kick it off and ask, shall we start with you, Robin? To answer the question, how has your identity shifted as you lived into the heart sets and mindsets that are evident in this book and this journey that we've been on together? And we did ask the three authors to put together a comic strip to bring that story to life, because it's all about stories.
Yeah, so hopefully, hold on, I'm not an artist. Hold on, I always, because mine is opposite. Hold on, here we go. We got it. Reading the screen. There we go. All right, so here is kind of my before. That's a wall. That's me. That's my head repeatedly banging against the wall. Oops. And so that is around frustration. That is around frustration with too many meetings, talking, no action being taken. People that don't always play nice in the sandbox, being blockers. So, you know, feeling your frustration reason there. And so then, you know, there was a point where this, the thing around definition of insanity comes into play, meaning got to do something different. And so my transformation here is my beautiful drawing of a Band-Aid, my broken heart, and this is the calendar that I talked about. And so, the Band-Aid is the repair of, my frustration. It's the typical Band-Aid approach we take to fixing problems. It's the, the having to work with those that don't play well in the sandbox. And so the idea, there's a shift that happened here, where move to the last screen, and this gets into the heart of falling in love with the problem, going where the love is, and I'll explain that in a minute, as well as there's time representing a bias towards action. So in terms of the go where the love is and falling in love with the problem, usually here we're falling in love with solutions. We're probably working with, I call them prisoners, folks that do not want to necessarily move or change or just dug their heels in. And so breaking up with that and really focusing on let's spend our energy with the folks that actually are leaning in, want to change, want to look for a better alternative faster. Not meeting after meeting, but let's build and do and talk at the same time to get better solution. And I should have did a fourth frame that shows, this is my fourth frame.
There you go.
Peace.
Love it. Love it. Shawn, what about your story? How has your identity shifted from before engaging these mindsets and heart sets, and now that you're really living into them? And I know that there's maybe more to talk about there of when did you identify these? But I think just a starting place, where do you think your transformation happened?
Well, again, my comic, which is not nearly as well done, is Robin's. So I have me under a beautiful tree on a hill, and I only had a black and red marker, so I couldn't. Singing la 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 with the sunshine. And this is the world I thought maybe we lived in. And then I hit corporate America, which led me to little sunshine, but this big mountain and only 3 la la laws. And I realized for me to be who I needed to be in my mindsets and heart sets, that I needed to be truly authentic to myself, which led me to the other side of the mountain where my hair turned completely red. And instead of la la laws, I'm saying fire, fire, fire. Coming down the mountain to my next transformation being, I only have a mohawk. Even the sun's red and I'm breathing fire. Really bad description of breathing fire. That's why I wrote the word fire there. And now the ground's turned into fire.
Just so we're clear that you weren't puking cherry Kool-Aid.
No.
It is indeed fire, as indicated by the word fire. This is good.
That's why I wrote the word fire, because it did look like I was puking cherry Kool-Aid.
I love it.
I tried to do it. And I think for me, what I realized, and I know you were hinting at this, Michael, is I just don't know when I made that transition, because I've always been that person to press the edges. So I could have put this, drawn a baby, but I'm not a very good drawer, so I use stick figures. But I think the transformation for me was just, it's who I have been, and it just became more pronounced the older I have gotten in life.
And I think there's something about articulating these heart sets and mindsets into phrases that can be passed along to other people too, right? That it's one thing just to embody them and to live them without thinking about it, but like to your point of your comic strip, really being able to claim them, identify them, claim them, and then live them outwardly and be able to articulate what you're doing, that's a whole different level.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So are you ready for mine?
Yeah. Wow.
Right?
Show off.
Well,
no one likes to show off.
If you look at the details, you'll see that there's nothing much pretty about it. But if it does make a nice little impact, so I'm happy for that. So the first pain there is, you know, we can't, no, not enough money. If there were more space, think of all the negative phrases that could exist, of all the no's. And so I'm there in the middle and I say, I guess it's a no, because I can't pinpoint when the time came, but over time, I learned to live in a no mindset, and I learned to live in a toxic culture as if that was normal, to always start with no. And that if you would have asked me, was I in a negative mindset, I would have said, no, I'm good. But the reality is my behavior said differently, that I was always starting with no, saying no. And so I did have a transformational epiphany moment. It happened to be in Puerto Rico. And there's a story in the book about it, actually, about me being stuck in the rain and having to work through some stuff. And I won't go into all the details, I'll let you read it, but it ends with me saying a big, let's do this, and deciding that I'm going to commit to actually going on this adventure and embracing these mindsets and these heart sets as a way of living and working in ways that made me really, really nervous and tense and not particularly excited. And so the bottom there is, it says the adventure begins, but the adventure is not smooth sailing and straightforward. It's crooked and up and down. And if I was more of an artist, perhaps I would have drawn some other things to have to like jump through or jump over or deal with along the journey. And yeah, notice that it continues on off the page as if something else is going to happen. So for me, it's really epitomized by embracing that there was a negative in my world, trying to do something about it, and then embracing that adventure. And I think that's why I get so frustrated when people act as if this concept is simple, and as if the adventure, the journey is simple, as, oh yeah, we got this. I want to say, if you think it's that simple, you're probably not getting it. You're not leaning into the messiness. And if you think radical relationships are easy, one of the things we profess, because you're natural at it, you're probably wrong. That there's something that you're missing in that conversation. So I'm much more on the critical thinking side, wanting to bring that to life, which is what leads us to Christopher's work. And I'll tell on Christopher a little bit that when he was getting his head around the manuscript, he couldn't just sit with it as a simple cautionary tale. And he disappeared into his catacombs or whatever it is. And 2 days later, he came out with this whole visual plan of all this stuff. And he said, I figured it out. He said, it's auto cannibalism and shadow work. And I had like, he showed me pictures of auto cannibalism, and went to this whole nother level of Jungian psychology of how this could all work together. But in the end, it really is just about Batman. So let's turn it over to Christopher and give you a few minutes to unpack where you see this allegory, this journey, this adventure.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael and everyone. And thanks for putting up with our request to do your 3-part series cells to introduce the topic today. That was really great and enlightening. So yeah, I'll give a little brief intro to who I am and what I do for the team, and why I feel really privileged to even give this segment here, which I'm keeping brief, and I have some slides to go through because that's my style. But I feel blessed to be able to have worked with Shawn and Robin and Michael, the authors of this book, and get the insight from working with them to push me towards opening myself up to even consider kissing dragons, and then to read the book, and then really have this all click and come together. And I am a self-affirmed, and I'm leaning into this more brainiac, egghead bookworm. So I want to adopt that moniker and feel good about it. And part of Kissing Your Dragons is doing that and understanding who you are and driving to be that bold version of yourself. And that is something that I found in the book. So as I dug into it, and I said, well, where's the theory behind this theory? Like, what are the fundamental, I know that there's literature that this is standing on because I've seen it work in the business and the work that we've done and the consulting work we've done with major companies and small teams. So as I was digging into it, that's when I sort of came to what Michael has alluded to, some of the founding principles behind these mindsets and heart sets. So I'm gonna share my screen on one particular slide deck here. Can you all see my slide deck that says, Kiss Your Dragons? What does Kiss Your Dragons have to do with Batman? Yes, okay.
Yes.
So really briefly, what does Kiss Your Dragons have to do with Batman anyway? And how's auto-cannibalism gonna come into this? So I will just quickly walk you through some of that. And the first thing that I came to as I was reading the book and I was thinking, what is all this about? Where have I seen this before? I know that I've seen this situation because to me, in my mind, there was this fundamental contradiction that the book was highlighting. And I wanted to reconcile that because at one point in the book, it tells you to kiss your dragons, which are these external things. They're problems in the outside world that you're dealing with. But then later in the book, it's also telling you to unleash your inner fire and be the dragon. So how are you both dealing with a dragon that's external and you are the dragon? And I was like, where did I see that? And then my pop culture mind activated. And I was like, oh yeah, this is what happens to Luke Skywalker when he goes into the cave on Dagobah. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this moment or in the storyline, but Luke Skywalker, I'm going to assume people know who Luke Skywalker and what Star Wars is for this brief talk, or I'll run out of time if I go into the whole background. But so Luke Skywalker, who's training to be a Jedi Knight, goes into this cave where there's this it's a dark energy cave. And he's confronted by the villain in the series. This is episode 5. And so Darth Vader is there. He takes out his lightsaber and slashes down Darth Vader, whose head falls off. And his helmet falls off, it rolls over, explodes to reveal, it's Luke inside the helmet. How did that happen? Mind freak. So it's like, he's in there dealing with his worst fear, but he also is his worst fear, which brings us to Carl Jung, who is a contemporary of Sigmund Freud and a founder of analytic psychology, and his idea of the shadow. And doing shadow work actually is very trendy right now. In fact, I think that 2020, a lot of people were home through COVID, dealing with a lot of mental health issues and stress. I looked in Google, shadow work as a Google search term has gone up 5 times in the last 8 or 9 months, by an order of 5, after being stagnant for about 5 years. So that's pretty impressive to me that a lot of people are starting to see this concept be drawn out. So I'll just tell you briefly what this is, and there's a lot to it, but Carl Jung identified 4 major archetypes that create the conscious and the subconscious mind. And these archetypes he broke down into 4 pieces. There's the anima and animus, which is our male and female parts. So everyone has both male and female elements to their psychology, and they express themselves to different degrees and in different ways. There's the persona, which is the series of masks that we wear in our life, the persona that we are projecting at any given time. You know, I have my father mask on, I have my academic researcher mask on, I have my stage performance mask on. There's the self, which is kind of your actual true identity, which is this energetic being that's beyond your, that's the summation of all of your parts. And then there's the shadow, and the shadow is a really important and really fascinating piece of our identity because it's a piece of our subconscious that contains all of our fears, anxieties, worries, animalistic nature and behavior, things that are being repressed, trauma, childhood trauma. It's a dark place, but also inside the shadow, which we drag around with us, all this baggage all the time in our life, there is all of our untapped potential and all of our shining light that we can't get out. And all of the things that that the shadow aspects of ourselves, those fears and anxieties, are preventing us from releasing and letting be free. So one of Carl Jung's main philosophies in his work was that people need to embrace and incorporate their shadow to be complete. Because if you want to be a whole, complete person in the world, you can't be whole and complete unless you can acknowledge and incorporate both your light and your dark side. And so that there's an entire philosophy and field of work around this. And there's a lot of shadow work journals and other kinds of support materials that people can find easily online. And also we packaged a whole set of it into the course learning that pairs with the book here. So that's kind of the starting point for the mindsets and heart sets in the book. It's this, it's part of what we start talking about when we say for our mindset and heart set, our mindset of a bias toward action, we start with quit grinding your gears over I can't do it and it won't work. Exchange the doom of doubt for the power of doing. Is how we describe that bias toward action, and it's all about confronting and overcoming these shadow aspects of our psychology that might be holding us back from moving towards action. And so that's a really cool piece of that. So we're going to go from shadow work to Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, because we're going to get to Batman. And so to understand Batman, we have to understand how a person can go on a hero's journey. So there's this monomyth, which was developed as a concept by a man named Joseph Campbell in the 1970s. And basically Campbell, for those who don't know, looked across, he's a researcher of comparative mythology and religions, and he looked across all of these stories throughout different cultures through time and found 17 core elements that connect them all. Heroes tend to go through this typical journey. And so those are not all depicted here, but this is the basic breakdown. There's kind of this call to adventure that happens. People tend to resist, or heroes tend to resist that call, and then they get pushed out that door by a mentor or some kind of magical element. And then you leave the normal world and enter the world of the supernatural. And as you go through the world of the supernatural, this is when someone sort of descends into the dark inner workings of their life. And they have to, through a series of tests and challenges, and with allies and enemies, they do a lot of that shadow work. They confront their own fears. They find the magic elixir or the sword that they need to get so that they can then return to the normal world, deal with the enemy that they left to level up to be able to defeat, and then things can go back to normal, but now they're a changed person. And so going through, that's the basic hero's journey, and that's somewhat, any journey. Joseph Campbell said that life is just one series of hero's journeys over and over again that we're called upon to go on. And that's partly what this book is doing, is these three dragon guides are acting as that mentor to push us out the door and to go towards that next level challenge that we want to go on for ourselves. So then I'll get right to Batman, because Batman has a hero's journey. Obviously, everyone does, and he has one that most people are pretty familiar with. And there are these two aspects to Batman, Bruce Wayne and the Batman. And actually, if you go to overthinkingit.com, which I'm a fan of, there's this whole thing about, well, why are we calling it the Batman? And so it's interesting to use that definite article on the, because there's this theory, and there are different ways that Batman's name gets used, because when you call him the Batman, it really distinguishes Batman from the mask that Bruce Wayne wears, as this is truly Bruce Wayne wearing the mask of Batman, and the Batman being a separate individual entity, because when Bruce Wayne goes through his transformation to become the Batman, he basically adopts the Batman is the true version, and Bruce Wayne is the mask, as he goes through this complete transformation to become that character and to become that dragon version of himself. So I'm just going to talk about the Christopher Nolan version of Batman Begins, because that's kind of the most recent and most relevant for this. But if we think about Batman's journey as it relates to Kiss Your Dragons, and to the hero's journey, there's this very straightforward situation where Bruce Wayne as a young boy is torn from the normal world. His parents are taken from him. And in the storyline, he, at the funeral, runs off onto his property and falls into this cave that's on their property. And then he gets surrounded by all these bats that he disturbs, and they terrify him. And that's part of his deep fear and doubt and trauma. It becomes a complete representation of his entire shadow. And so that fear is the thing that's really, just kind of collecting everything that he feels, and everything that he feels is wrong with Gotham City, which he eventually wants to be able to come back and purify. So he goes off, he sets out for a life of training so that he can leave the normal world, go towards the supernatural world, where he can become a highly trained, competent crime fighter, and then be able to come back with those new skills and implement them. And so in that movie, he goes off and meets this mentor, Ra's al Ghul, who trains him with the League of Shadows, and he develops these highly adept ninja-like combat skills. And they have this exchange in the movie where they say, if you make yourself more than just a man, if you devote yourself to an ideal, you become something else entirely. A legend, Mr. Wayne, is how Ra's al Ghul explains that. And so it sort of clicks for him, this concept that he needs to, in the movie, they set it up such that he has to embrace his innermost fears, embrace his dark sides, embrace anything that would hold him back or make him pause from taking action at any time. And in order to release, not just release himself from those fears by incorporating them, but also to release his ultimate potential, which is buried down with them. So that's when Batman goes through the transformation to totally embrace the bat as the symbol of his innermost fears. So he not only embraces, but becomes this bat. So I see this picture and it's like, kiss, oops, it's like, kiss your dragons. But so he kisses his dragons. He learns to breathe fire by developing all of this skill set and creating a tool set that will help him. He becomes the dragon, and I would say he has a devout heart set. I mean, he's not half-hearting this. His heart's completely in this cause. So it's interesting because Batman is able to go back and go through a number of seasons and issues of comics and storylines and subplots before he really gets to his ultimate validation point, before he truly learns to soar, which is when he finds his swarm. Down the line, he remains this kind of tortured loner, even though he has Robin, he has Alfred, he has Commissioner Gordon, who are there by his side. His real swarm is the Justice League, and he kind of becomes the project manager of the Justice League once he really goes and then is able to go off and totally soar. And so it's at that point when it all comes together and he's his best self. And so I think that's just a really great allegory for the book, the concepts as they tie together. And who knew the whole book was about Batman? I was thrilled to find out. And so to bring this around and then show us, a real world example of how this might play out. I don't know how many of you may have heard of Batman of San Jose, but right now, very topical during COVID, there's a teenager the last 8 or 9 months in San Jose, California, who is very passionate about houselessness and helping folks who are living a houseless lifestyle. And he has, in order to bring attention to the issues, as much attention as possible without putting the attention on himself, he has started wearing a full body Batman suit that he's made himself. And he goes out every day with supplies, bottled water, socks, food, whatever he can get. And he delivers it and talks to people on the street throughout San Jose. And he has an Instagram, Batman of San Jose, and he's partnering with some local organizations, trying to stay on top of the city council and, work on policy development while also raising awareness of the issues. And so there's this fantastic real world representation of how you can go after some really big dragons and how you can really adopt a, you can think of and embody and become this character that you can elevate both the status of your cause and your mission and do some good in the world. And this story actually spreads to the next town over. There's now Spider-Man of Cupertino who got inspired by this and is also delivering some goods and being a force for humanizing folks who are living houseless in their neighborhoods. So that's a big part of what they're doing actually is they're one of the biggest struggles of the houseless population is that folks are dehumanized and are ignored on the street. So what they try and do is stop and talk to people, spend some time in conversation and just bring some humanity back to this struggle. So that is the whole introduction to some of the underlying principles behind Kiss Your Dragons. So I wonder if after that anyone has any questions, which I haven't been paying attention to.
So I'm going to speak for everybody that our heads are spinning. I was just going to give you a second I was just going to buy some time for you, Shawn. But if you're ready, what's your response?
Yeah, can I say holy shit?
Yes.
No,
wow,
it's holy shit, Batman.
Oh, sorry, holy shit, Batman. And that comes from Robin, right? So, wow. Christopher, I can't wait to even pick your brain more. I took notes on my comic strip. So yeah, I love the correlation of what people have to work through, and I've never ever would have put it in that correlation of the life of Batman. So thank you for sharing that with us. And so I guess we're Batman, Robin, and Wonder Woman. I don't know. So
Alfred.
Well,
we have
there you go. There you go. So thank you.
Robin, what's your takeaway from being taken through all of that?
I am always fascinated. I put in the chat just the scariness that is Christopher, and yeah, auto cannibalism. I'm like, oh my goodness. I don't even know where to start. I just was enthralled by the entire journey of, I guess, this reconciliation that we all have to go through ultimately to my simple way of saying it is using our powers for good and not evil at scale. So yeah, well, that's the dumbed down version for me, because that's what I'm fluent in that.
So what's not good for us here, just for people, particularly for Michael and Robin, because I think the next book is going to have to be around Batman and the Justice League. Yeah, I think there's some stuff there, Christopher, that you have brought about that might be another book.
Yep.
As Michael's saying, no, he's going to have to go to the rain again.
Correct.
Like in the chat, Michael Shoot just reminded me, I forgot to mention where in this auto-cannibalism comes up. So auto-cannibalism, as I was talking to Michael Harper here about before, is interesting because it's part of that moment when you integrate your shadow. So it also comes up, so auto-cannibalism is both as unsettling a condition as it sounds, and not, but it is the condition in which a person eats themselves, and it's rare, but it is documented that this happens. But cannibalism itself is throughout history, in many cultures, has been a practice that is ritualistic in a way, and is about incorporating like strength and power, particularly taking the strength and power from your enemies. You know, if you eat your enemies, then it's like the ultimate way to embody and imbibe their strength and power and adopt it for yourself. And it's even cannibalism for that purpose is even still practiced ritualistically in the Christian church with the eating of the sacrament, the body and blood of Christ. So everyone who's going on Sunday and taking the body and blood of Christ is, embodying the spiritual energy of the Holy Spirit. And thank you, Michael's like, I can tell you about this.
The deity, yes.
In the shadow work that people can do, there is an element of kind of incorporating and feeding yourself off of your shadows, and looking at the shadows that you carry with them, and then eating them or imbibing them so that you can become your most whole, complete self. So you want to integrate that into your being. And it shows up again in a new spot in some of the mindsets and heart sets that we set up, or that are set up in the book. Underneath of Being the Dragon, I think, A Show Don't Tell and Being the Dragon, there's this whole component that is it under Being the Dragon? I can't, yeah. There's this whole component that's about, Show Don't Tell is really about kind of prototyping, sharing what you've done, learning quickly from taking action on various parts of whatever business or product development goals that you have, and putting something out there quick, even if it's not perfect, to get feedback. And what we want to help people do through the heart set of Being the Dragon is not be discouraged when you get negative reactions, confusion, disappointment that come back as the feedback. Actually be fueled by them and be thrilled by them, even, because those are the forbidden fruits of innovation. It's if we find something where someone's confused about the prototype we built, that's like, oh, great, tell me more. There's an opportunity here. So it's part of having your dragon be fed by those kind of confusion points, or points of of disappointment, or scratching your head over, well, how's this product or service gonna like help me? It doesn't make sense. This feels funny. I don't like that button. Like, so that's where the cannibalism and the auto-cannibalism component comes into it.
You asked, Michael. That's what happens. So let's spend our last few minutes getting super practical. So you had me at Batman of San Jose, and I actually knew about that. You caught me off guard with Spider-Man of Cupertino.
Right.
So it's spreading this, however you want to frame it, in terms of proclaiming the gospel, or spreading the love, or increasing the swarm, or unleashing your inner fire, right? So what is, maybe this is for Christopher and Robin and Shawn, what is your practical advice for let's do this? Let's spread that into the world. Evangelize, grow, make it bigger, get practical of how do we take this concept of shadow work and hero's journey and apply it to our lives?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's just leaning into those things. And, Kissing the Dragon is very much around shadow work, leaning into the things that you fear the most, the things that scare you. I did another podcast this morning, and I said, it's the things that make your gut twist and break out in a sweat and your heart race.
That's true.
Right. And that's the shadow work. Lean into it. The more you lean into it, I'm sure that these, Spider-Man of Cupertino, Batman of San Jose, like, I don't think that may have been an easy thing for them to do, but they knew they had to go conquer and do something powerful in the world. And that's how they chose to do it. We have that same ability and that same way of doing it. And it's not, I joke about it, but I think your comic really said it, Michael. It's not easy. And it's an adventure, and there's going to be ups and downs. And how you come out at the end of the journey is more important than how you entered the journey.
I'll just add to that is that one of our worst villains, see what I did there, is in our head. We do a really good job of producing, directing, and starring in our own horror movie with no other co-stars, no one's in the audience but us. And so in terms of just doing it, particularly the worst case scenario rarely pans out, rarely, or it pans out because we've created it. We created that. And so what I have found is that I used to be someone that would, let me cross the easier things off my list first. And then go to the hardest thing. And
well,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Robin, we'll put that into business sense, right?
Yes.
Let's go after the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, or the fruit on the ground, the fruit that's just
or the fruit
on the ground.
And I remember when you and I first met, Robin, and I challenged you, and I said, Robin, quit going after the low stuff. Let's go after the big problem. But it's not easy. And we had a lot of resistance when we go after the problems we're trying to tackle within the MoFi ecosystem and the Disruptor League are not easy problems and are not low-hanging fruit and are not things that are laying on the ground. And so people are pushing and challenging.
Yep.
What do you think, Christopher? What's your response to how does the rubber meet the road here?
It reminds me that it doesn't have to be all at once, and that when we go after problems that are this big, it could take generations to hit the notes that have to be hit to make the changes happen. And one thing that I have here, and I'm going to share one last slide that I had put up here and I didn't share because I didn't know if it would be relevant, but this question makes it relevant to me, is that there's this, can you see my slide with?
Yes.
With Gandhi on it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there's this quote that comes around from Martin Luther King that says, Christ showed us the way and Gandhi showed us how it could work, referring to nonviolent direct action that Gandhi sort of made very, very effective in India. And so Gandhi, who went through his own humongous transformation from his years in South Africa as a lawyer to adopt the traditional holy robes of an Indian holy man, and even having the public give him the moniker Mahatma Gandhi, which is kind of the spiritual father of the country at the time, was going through a significant transformation to become this dragon. And from Christ to Gandhi to Martin Luther King is a serious journey in terms of achieving social racial equity. And that is just another encapsulation of how these concepts play out in really big ways, dealing with really big critical problems that we face as a planet and a global society.
I think that is a fantastic place to end the conversation of just looking at that transformation and how powerful it is and where the first step is and how it all goes together. So I think I'm going to speak for every human on this call that I think we're all going to spend some time sitting with this and seeing how it could inform our next steps this evening and tomorrow, the rest of the week, rest of the year. So thank you to everybody. Thank you, Robin and Shawn, especially Christopher, for bringing this theory to us and challenging us in this way. Just a quick reminder for everybody that the Kiss Your Dragons discussion guide for groups is available on the website. That is a great way to do a book club. And then we also have the resource kit for teams that's available for sale on the website as well. And the resources for teams has a whole bunch of stuff. It has a presentation you can do. It has placement activities. It's got an assessment. It's got follow-up activities to go with the assessment to show you how to get your team into these heart sets and mindsets. And then also we'll be sending out for everybody an activity that is like the comic strip activity that we did earlier as the 3 authors, sending it out to all of you that you can use with your team to help them track their hero's journey and where they are in their own personal adventures. So thank you, everybody, and let's go kiss some dragons.